afternoon, everyone. My name is Jalissa, and I'm really happy to be here and go through this entire program. I love it so much. And thank you to Bobbito for having us.
Our other very special guest, as Jalissa said, is Bobbito García, aka Cool Bob Love.
Well, I'm bugging out because you're both like educators. I thought the two of you were like the presidents of the museum. Like,
maybe one day.
Did you found the Museum of the City of New York? No?
Yeah, correct.
Okay,
not really.
Part of the master plan.
Yeah.
It's an honor to be here. And actually, this is the second time we're doing this today. So we have worked out the kinks, and for the 1 p.m. audience, you are in for a treat because you're going to be even elevated. And if you were here for the earlier one and are back again because you loved it so much, then welcome back.
Yeah, welcome everybody. We are just overjoyed to be with you here today. Again, my name is Charlotte. I'm a museum educator from the Museum of the City of New York. For those of you who are just joining, I'm also an artist in my free time. I love making art. And what I'm so excited about today's session is that we will not only hear from our amazing guest speaker, Bobbito García, about all of the interesting things that he's done in his life, but we're also going to design and draw our own sneakers in this session. Nice. And I'm joined by another museum educator from the Museum of the City of New York named Jalissa. Jalissa, if you want to just say hi one more time for those who are just now joining.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining for our next session. So like Charlotte, in my free time, I do like to do my own art on the side as well. So I'm just really excited to really bring this creative process once again.
And we're going to dive right into the program. If people come in throughout, that's a-okay. We'll, keep introducing ourselves and saying how excited we are to be here today. So welcome everybody to Basketball Sounds and Style with Bobbito García, our very, very special guest. We are coming to you from the Museum of the City of New York, and we're going to be talking about basketball and music and sneakers and lots of interesting things today. Some of the photos that we're going to be looking at are going to be pulled from this exhibit called City Game Basketball in New York, which you can see on the left-hand photo. And this exhibit or room in the museum that has artwork and objects that are all focused on the same topic. This exhibit is all about basketball. This exhibit captures the excitement and evolution of the game of basketball in New York City, from sports to music to fashion to culture. And because we are talking about so many interesting topics today, we are so incredibly lucky to be joined by our special guest, Bobbito García, aka Cool Bob Love. And as I tell you more about him and introduce him, I'm going to play a clip from the trailer for a movie that he made about his life called Rock Rubber 45s. So New York City native and world-renowned DJ Bobbito García, aka Cool Bob Love, is the critically acclaimed author of Where Do You Get Those? New York City Sneaker Culture. The former New York Knicks and MSG Network halftime reporter was the voice of EA Sports' popular NBA Street video game and TV host of ESPN's It's the Shoes series. In 2007, Nike released 7 co-signed Air Force One sneakers bearing his signature. As an award-winning filmmaker, Garcia has directed 3 documentaries: Doing It in the Park, Pick Up Basketball in NYC, Stretch and Bobbito, Radio That Changed Lives, and Rock Rubber 45s, which is the film that we're looking at clips from the trailer from right now. Currently, Cool Bob Love produces his tournament Full Court 21 All World in 4 continents and co-hosts Stretch and Bobbito Radio on Apple Music Hits. Bob, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I think if it's cool with you, I'm going to start inviting you to every event that I ever do for the rest of my life, so you can introduce me in the same way. What's up, Museum of the City of New York audience? Much love. I grew up not even a mile away from the entrance to the museum. Was honored when I was asked to be a special consultant to the City Game exhibition that's currently running. And to go even further, my photos are not only featured in that space, but also in the accompanying book, City Game, that was published by Rizzoli. And I curated the music that's in that room. And I have sneakers up in that room. So my imprint is all up in there. And, I miss being able to go up there as often as I would like to during the pandemic. But I was blown away when it first opened. And just big ups to Lily Tuttle and the whole Whitney and the whole crew up there at the museum.
We are equally, if not more, excited for you to join us today for not one, but two family programs. We feel so lucky. So to give everybody a sense about what we're going to be doing in today's session, I want to share that this is the second of 3 STEAM education family programs that we're doing at the museum this spring. And STEAM, as you can see on the screen, stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, Art, and Math. And in these STEAM education family programs, we use our STEAM skills. And STEAM skills are those skills that we get when we combine the arts and the sciences. So all of those creative thinking and collaboration and innovation skills, those are STEAM skills. Also in these programs, we make art. We do live art making in the session. And so I'm going to take us through how to design our own sneakers based on all of the interesting things that Bob is going to share with us today. So another equally important part of this program is hearing from you. So you can feel free to put in the chat, say a quick hello or why you're excited to be here. And I want to go over how to use Zoom to participate in today's session. So the first things first is if you see the little view button somewhere on the corner, one corner of your screen, depending on what device you're on, if you see that button, you should click on it and click gallery mode. So if you don't have this option, that's totally okay. You'll still be able to see the program and participate. But if you do have this option, it's better to be in gallery mode so you can see all 3 of us and the presentation at the same time. You can also put your thoughts and questions in the chat. So in today's session, Jalissa is going to be looking at the chat throughout the whole time, looking for those really interesting observations and comments and reading them out loud so that we can all hear them. Because this is a Zoom webinar, you can see us, but we can't hear or see you, and your chats only come to the 3 of us. So if you have a really interesting observation or something that you found really interesting that you noticed about what we're looking at, you want to share it, put it in the chat and Jalissa might read it out loud. The last way you can participate today is through polls. And we're actually going to launch our first poll today because we want to get a sense of who is in the room here with us. So first question is, how many people are watching from your device? Are you watching by yourself, meaning 1? Are there 2 people watching, 3, 4, 5, or 6 or more? And the second question is, how old are you? And if you're watching with more than 1 person, select the ages of all the people who are watching with you. So you can select multiple choices. Thank you everybody for voting in the polls. Jalissa, as people are voting, am I forgetting anything about Zoom, anything that you want to add?
Last but not least, we also have the option of closed captioning right there at the bottom of your screen. So if you want to have subtitles throughout this program, you can click that button right there.
Thank you. I forgot that this morning, and then I was like, I'll remember it for the afternoon, and then I forgot it again. So thank you for remembering, Jalissa. Just going to leave this poll up for a few more seconds so everybody can vote. Oh, wow. And I see people are already saying hi in the chat, which is wonderful. Amazing. All right, I'm going to end poll. Thank you so much for voting. So now let's get into what are we doing in today's session. So as you heard, Bobbito García has done so many interesting things in his life. So because we only have an hour, we can only talk about some of them. So the 3 things we're going to focus on are basketball. First, we're going to talk all about pickup basketball in New York City. Then we're going to sketch and look for inspiration for our own sneaker designs. Then we're going to talk all about music and experiment with colors and patterns, figuring out what colors and patterns we want to put in our sneakers. And then lastly, we're going to draw our own sneakers, and I'll show you a really easy way to draw your own sneaker. And Bobbito is going to give us his expert advice on the whole sneaker design process, what it looks like to see an idea turn into an actual sneaker that you can wear on your foot. And because we're going to be drawing sneakers and designing sneakers throughout the program, as a reminder, here are the required and optional materials. So in order to participate, all you will need is a piece of paper and something to write with. That's all you need. That said, if you want to use other arts and craft supplies like paint, colored pencils, markers, watercolor, crayons, crayons, or colorful paper, you are more than welcome to. You can use any art supplies that you want. And I'll just leave this up for just a moment so people can see what materials they need. And as you're gathering materials, let's dive into our first section of the program, all about basketball. And to introduce you to the world of pickup basketball in New York City, we're going to watch a clip from a trailer from a different movie that Bobbito made called Doing It in the Park, all about pickup basketball in New York City. We can hear it? Perfect.
Yep.
I grew up playing playground basketball. You fought for the court, whether somebody lost and then you got on. You try to stay on the duration of the day. My generation at that time, we changed basketball. We changed basketball from pick and roll, give and go to make it happen.
Wow. So I love watching that trailer because it makes me so excited about basketball.
Me too.
Shocking. Bob, I want to hear your thoughts and about your personal experience. So could you share just a little bit about how pickup basketball and basketball performance shaped how you feel or think about New York City?
Well, it doesn't just shape how I feel about New York City. It shapes my complete existence, period. Like how I deal with my son, how I travel the world, how what schools I chose to attend. I mean, it's determined who my best friends in life are. I mean, basketball is, I cannot even begin to describe how important it is. You know, and I play many roles in life. I'm a DJ, filmmaker, author. I'm a parent. I am a friend to people. I'm a relative. But, you know, the bottom baseline is that I'm a ball player. And, you know, particularly when it comes to career, you know, people often ask me like, oh, if you had to choose between music and sneakers and basketball, which one would it be? And I'm always like, I'm a ball player. And because I'm a ball player, I'm into music. And because I'm a ball player, I'm into sneakers. But it's, you know, it's the alpha of the omega. It's the starting point. And it's the end point too. Like I'll be 55 in a few months and I'm still playing ball. And, you know, when I die, I want to have my ashes, you know, blown into the wind on a basketball court. So, you know, I can't go any deeper than sharing, you know, that's how much it means to me.
Well, thank you for sharing that. That was beautiful. Yeah, I mean, I'm not much of a basketball player, but just listening to you talk and watching that video about how much this sport has touched so many people's lives personally, I just find so meaningful. And also makes me feel very inspired, which takes us to the next thing that we're going to be talking about, which is inspiration. where do you get the ideas for sneakers that you design? So before we talk about how we're going to find inspiration or ideas for our own sneaker designs, I want to hear from you, Bob. How did you find the inspiration or ideas for sneakers that you've designed?
Yeah, well, as far as being a designer, it really starts first as a customizer in the early years, late 70s, early 80s. And case in point, you have here a bed that I drew in the winter of 1980, 81 to be exact, when I was a freshman at Brooklyn Tech High School. And as you can see on the bottom left, I only had 2 pairs of sneakers back then, but it was important to me when the teacher gave us an assignment to include something that had sneakers. And so, back then I used to sketch sneakers. I would sketch logos. And also underneath my bed, you'll notice a sort of storage piece. I used to keep comic books in there. And I was particularly fond of Daredevil and Silver Surfer, both of which were based in New York City and had fantastic illustrators, colorists. And yeah, it's like I'm realizing this now, all these years later, but I think part of my inspiration was clearly basketball, but also New York, comics, and a whole lot of other things. Like my lopsided bed frame and mattress.
I love that.
Yeah.
What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, like, I've always been inspired first and foremost by basketball.
Totally. 2 things just that I thought of. First of all, it's so like, feels very adolescent, very teenager to have like the sheet that you don't even fully put on your bed because you're rushing to go to the next thing.
Yeah.
I also love that you were sharing about comics, how inspired you were by comics. And I'm just curious, because I don't think we talked about this. Did you have a particular comic book character that was really like you really thought was interesting or
Sure.
you looked up to?
Yeah. I mean, I was into Marvel, but particularly Silver Surfer and Daredevil, as they were both highly misunderstood. And even in my adolescence and in my early teenage years, I always felt like I was misunderstood. Like people didn't understand why I loved sneakers so much. To the older generation, they couldn't understand why I would need 2 pairs of sneakers to play ball. And they were like, you have 1 pair of sneakers. It's like, yeah, but the 1 pair is to go to Bed-Stuy when I'm going to be in a rough neighborhood in 1980 to, show that like I'm cool, but it's not like super fresh out the box where I might get robbed for them. I mean, that's back in the day, that was the reality. But also I love variety. I loved being unique. And these were things that I like when I would read about Silver Surfer and Daredevil, I felt like they were similar to that, had very unique experiences, and so did a perspective, and so did I.
I love that. So now that we've heard a little bit from Bob about how he got inspired to design his sneakers, I'm going to take you through the first step in our sneaker design process, which is all about inspiration or ideas behind sneakers. So everybody's going to take their piece of paper and you're going to fold it into 3. So you just make it kind of like a tube, like that. And then you press it down. So you have 3 folds, 3 sections of your paper. They don't have to be perfectly straight or perfectly even. You just need 3 sections because there's 3 steps in our craft. So first, fold your paper into 3. Now we're going to start with step 1, which is all about inspiration. So for my sneaker, I wanted to make a mustard themed sneaker. I was inspired by mustard. And so in my first section, I drew what inspired me, which is 2 different bottles of mustard and a hot dog with some mustard. And so as you all sketch in your first section of what inspires you, here's some questions that you might ask yourself as you're looking, if you're thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm inspired by. Here's some questions you can ask yourself. What are things in the world that you find beautiful? What is your favorite memory? What are things, movements, and people that you think about when you think about basketball? And you can ask these to yourself and draw based on your answers. You can also put your answers in the chat and share what inspires you or your answers to any of these questions. And Jalissa, as we're waiting for people to share what inspires them, what have you noticed? What are people excited about so far in this program?
Well, people have been definitely excited about drawing on sneakers. I know one person asked like what kind of shoes that we could be drawing on. So definitely try it out on your piece of paper first before you sketch it out onto your sneakers. And this is all about creativity. As someone said in the last session about walkable art, and really have as much fun with this as you can. Another person asked about where they can see your whole movies, Bobbito. So I'm wondering if you just want to tell the people out loud.
Sure. So I have a website, coolboblove.com. That's spelled with a K. And you'll see a number of tabs. One is film, and all 3 trailers to the documentaries that I've directed and produced are there. That'd be the easiest thing. Or you could just, go on Amazon or iTunes and type in my name, Bobbito García, and all the films that I've directed will come up. Vimeo, YouTube as well. Yeah. Thank
Awesome. Yeah. Definitely want to go watch that later.
you. Thanks.
Totally. So Jalissa, what are people being inspired by for their sneakers?
One person said they're inspired by cats. I definitely feel you on that. Cats inspired me all the time. And another person said they were inspired by reading, especially the Harry Potter series. They'll talk about all the floral pattern and glitter, and that's really awesome. Another person wrote dinosaurs and Frozen too. So definitely get your inspiration from your books, from movies, from nature and animals. Someone else wrote The Wind and by space. I'll be really excited to see a space-inspired sneaker.
Yeah, I'm at the end of this session, we're going to share ways that you can submit your artwork to the museum for a possible virtual MCNY Kids art gallery. So I hope that all of you are submitting your artwork because these are really interesting ideas. I'm especially curious about dinosaurs and Frozen too, because as far as I know, in the Frozen series, there aren't dinosaurs in those movies. And so I'm curious how those 2 ideas would come together. But anyway, back to the second section of our program. So now that we've talked a little bit about pickup basketball and what basketball has meant to Bob, I want to dive into music, which is an equally important part of not only Bob's career, but also the story of basketball in New York and the exhibit that we have in the museum all about basketball in New York City. So Bob, what does music mean to you, and how are music and basketball connected for you? And you feel free to just answer parts of those questions. I know they're huge, humongous questions.
No, it's fine. Well, first of all, let me point out in this photo here, which was taken at PS1 by my dear friend Nikki Wu, I'm wearing the Puma Clydes, which I designed in 2016. They were a limited edition release, and like when I'm performing, I want to be comfortable. You see, I look like a ball player because I am a ball player. I said that earlier, right? Like that's how I define myself. Like, if you cropped out my image and put me in a basketball court, you'd be like, oh yeah, like he looked like he's about to go bend over and stretch, But ball shorts, basketball t-shirts, basketball sneakers, like that's my MO. And I learned about hip hop nowhere else but playing ball. I mean, being in the park, back in the 70s and 80s, and hearing cats come with cassettes and talking about jams and talking about songs and live concerts and stuff. And that's, that was how you found out about the culture, the undercurrent of it. Sure, we listened to the radio, but basketball has been a part of music, and music has been a part of basketball for, 100 years. I mean, you go back to the Harlem Renaissance Ballroom, where Duke Ellington was playing halftime, for the Harlem Rents, which was the premier squad in the world. And, so there's always been this merger. I mean, there's two separate things. Basketball is not music and music is not basketball. However, you can play basketball in a very musical and rhythmic way. You can play music in a very basketball, syncopated, sort of aggressive and competitive way as well. So, there's tenets of each that sort of bridge together and interconnect.
Absolutely. I love reading about the Harlem Renaissance Ballroom, and how I think there's something so special too about even today, like you were saying, like basketball courts are spaces for sports, for playing basketball, but they're also spaces for sharing music, for coming together, for meeting with your friends. And I think there's something really special about that.
Absolutely.
What about these photos? What's happening in these photos, Bob?
Yeah, well, on the left, I was in Tokyo in front of a crowd of 4,000. Again, dressed like a ball player with a t-shirt, no suit and tie, no shoes. I had on basketball sneakers. That was a Nike event that I was doing, which was actually for the 25th anniversary of the Nike Air Force One. I'll get to that a little bit later on. But I was on a mic talking to the crowd who did not speak English, but, just expressing myself and just trying to emit positive vibes through the music that I was playing, but also through my voice. On the right side, again, b-ball shorts, t-shirt, kicks on. And there I was in Melbourne, Australia. And I dress like a ball player when I'm DJing because that's how I feel most comfortable. I mean, I dress like a ball player right now for the Museum of the City of New York, just like I'm ready to play ball, because it's almost like this mental thing. It's like, this is like when I went to the museum opening, there was press there and, paparazzi. Like I showed up in sweatpants and kicks, ready to play ball. Like if there was a run afterwards, I would have been like, yo, okay, I'm ready. I'm good. I got my joints on. So it's just a matter of just always being ready and always just having that mindset, that beautiful mindset, because basketball is my safe space, right? So it's like my sanctuary. So if I'm like sort of like in the mode, if you take me out of that safe space and put me somewhere else, then I still feel that energy, kind of.
Totally. I mean, I relate 100% in terms of when I put on like my painting shirt that's like stained with all sorts of different colors. It's like, I am me. I am myself. So I totally relate to that. Did that end up happening, by the way, after the museum opening? Somebody was like, Bob, let's play basketball right now.
I don't recall. I might have came back to Brooklyn and played when I got back. That was the exhibition at the Museum of the City of New York is so well done. Like my mind was blown. The whole time I was there, I was like antsy, like, wow. And they featured my tournament in the short film, my tournament Full Court 21. One of my staff members is actually in the Zoom right now. Shout out to Baba Chris and his family, his daughter, who's also taking part in this. So always big up to the museum.
That's amazing. The next thing that I want to talk about is colors and patterns, which to me feel very analogous, very connected to music. Music to me feels creative, freeing, expressive, and so do colors and patterns. And I want to talk about that in terms of our own sneaker designs as participants are designing their sneakers. I want to hear from you, Bob, and hear about how you picked the colors and patterns and designs in the sneakers that you designed.
Sure. Well, to the left, you see the biggest photo where that's in the red, white, and blue. That was inspired by the Puerto Rican flag. Actually, I'm sorry, not the Puerto Rican flag. That was inspired by the national team of Puerto Rico. I played Pro Bowl on the island in 1987. Very proud of what our country has done, particularly against the United States. We beat the U.S. Olympic team in 2004 by 19 points. That was the biggest loss that team has ever suffered. And I want to infuse some of that energy into the shoe. It was the Nike Air Force One. It was its 25th anniversary for the model's release. And I also thought that the fact that it was a highest level performance shoe when it was dropped in the early 80s was kind of lost on people because Air Force One had become so iconic in hip hop and pop culture. So I want to bring it back to like team colors. And then you see my hand on top of a basketball on the height of the heel by the collar. And then my nickname is Cool Bob Love. So you see love there with the basketball. But then you see the gum bottom, which is like, for me, like if you're going to design a pair of sneakers, you got to put it gummies, that's like, that's like a prerequisite.
On the outsole, is that the
on
outsole?
The outsole? Yes, the outsole. The midsole is white, but then you get the contrast with the gum outsole. Charlotte, you're good.
Impressed, right?
Yeah, you're good. You're getting good. And so, in general, I'm inspired by team colors, classic team colors, and I try to infuse that into the designs that I do.
That's amazing. I love how you're also pulling from things in your life that you have a personal connection to. You're pulling from your love for basketball. You're pulling from your experience playing in Puerto Rico. And I think that that's so special. And that's also something that we all can do as we're designing our own sneakers and experimenting with colors and patterns. So the next step in the craft, so in your tri-folded paper, if our first section was what inspired us, the second section is experimenting with colors and patterns. So this is your chance to really just try things out. Doesn't have to be perfect. You're just trying things out and seeing how it looks. So one thing that you can do, like Bob did, is you can choose colors and patterns that reminds you of what inspires you. But if that doesn't, if you picked your thing that was your source of inspiration, no good colors and patterns are coming to mind, you can also think of colors and patterns that have a certain feeling or energy to them. So you could think of what are playful colors? What are cool colors? What are sleepy colors? What are silly colors? And patterns too. You can see, drew some dots, some waves, a cloud, some stars. So I also encourage everybody, you all have shared such interesting sources of inspiration and observation so far in the chat. If you could share what colors and patterns you're thinking about putting in your sneaker design in the chat, and Jalissa will read them out loud. And as we're waiting for people to share with us what they're thinking about for their designs, Jalissa, what else are people noticing, or what parts of what Bob shared is really speaking to people?
I think, for one, that kind of experience of a basketball player. Like, as one person pointed out, like, true ball players are always ready to lace up and go in any moment. So I think Bobbito has got that on lock with his basketball shorts and his t-shirt. And someone else also agree with the gum soles being part of a sneaker design. It's being mandatory. I appreciate there's a real spirit within the space here about what basketball is and what it could be for the city.
I have a feeling Bob might not be our only expert among us. It seems like we maybe have some basketball and sneaker experts in the chat as well. So Jalissa, what colors and patterns are people sharing? What are they using?
Some people are really drawn to a lot of reds, oranges, yellows. Someone also noticed a blue or pink tie-dye as well,
Ooh.
being really playful and silly. Someone else put a purple, blue, and green as well. It's actually one of my favorite colors there, so definitely. Someone else commented that they use a light mint green to represent that feeling cool and relaxed, and pink to show happiness as well.
I love that. I agree with that. I think mint green does feel cool and relaxed, and pink feels happy. I would agree with that. Wow, I I am just getting so excited to see all photos of your sneakers one day, everybody. I hope that you all send in photos of your sneaker designs to the museum. So now here's the moment of truth where we put our sources of inspiration and our colors and patterns and designs all together, and we draw our sneaker. And then Bob is going to share what the process was like to see his sneaker designs and his ideas come to life. So I want to get everybody started on drawing your sneaker so that as you listen to how Bob designed his sneakers, you can keep drawing and keep sketching. So remember, as you're drawing your sneaker, you can think about inspiration, what inspires you. You can think about colors, patterns, feelings, or moods, like the person who was sharing how mint green felt cool and relaxed and pink felt happy. You can think about, what kind of a mood do you want to be in when you wear your sneakers? And you should feel free to draw your own sneaker freehands. Like I drew mine. I added a little mustard squiggle, a little mustard bottle keychain. I made mine platform because I was sharing with Jalissa before the session started that I love platform shoes. If you don't want to draw your sneaker freehand and you need some help drawing the shape of a sneaker, here's a pretty straightforward way to draw it. So you start with a rectangle. Step 1, draw a rectangle. Step 2, you change the corner. So you add like a curve to the top left corner, and then a curve in the other direction to the top right corner. Then you add 3 X's and a heart. Those are the laces. And then the last step is you erase those extra corners, the top 2 corners of the rectangle. So again, you start with a rectangle, you change the corners, you add your laces, which are 3 X's, like the part that goes on the shoe. And then the heart is like the part that you tie. And then you erase the extra corners. So I'll give everybody just a second to keep looking at this if you want to keep drawing your shape of the sneaker.
And you can, and for those who are a little more savvy, you can add a line that's parallel to the bottom of the shape that Charlotte has created, and that will create a midsole that's separate from the sneaker silhouette. And you can do your shape, and your rectangle can be really long if you have a big foot. Your rectangle could be really short if you have a small foot. You can make it a square. I mean, the sneakers are really, it's up to you, your creativity to design this. And if you want to draw more than 3 X's, so you have the majority of your shoe is shoelaces, like it's really open to how you want to express your sneaker. I want to use my son's example. He drew what I called air bunnies. He used a rabbit as his inspiration, and he put carrots in the shoelaces and had the bunny's foot as like a support. And then the bunny's ear was like part of the lace. And, so you get as extravagant and as imaginative as you may want. And I also want to shout out whoever said the mint green, because I actually used mint green in 2007 for the Nike Air Force One 25th anniversary model that I collaborated on one of the shoes, one of the 7 shoes that I did for the series.
On the same wavelength. So whoever said that.
Big up mint green. Mint green.
Totally. So Bob, now that we've started drawing our sneakers, I would love to hear from you. What was it like, the process of seeing sneakers that you designed come to life and become actual shoes that people could wear? Sure.
Well, in the photo that you're seeing on screen, those are the 4 high tops that I curated for Nike's 25th anniversary of the Air Force One model, which is their most iconic in the history of the brand. I mean, bar none, there's no shoe that has sold as many pairs as the Air Force One for them. And it's amazing because it's done so without any advertising or marketing in those first 25 years, from the early 80s until 2007. Here you see a collector who had purchased all 4 of the high tops and asked me to sign them. He might have since resold them on StockX for a lot of money or on eBay. More power to him if he did. But it's an honor when someone asks you to sign a pair of sneakers that you imagined. It's kind of crazy. I wasn't a platinum, rap artist. I wasn't an NBA athlete, and yet I had the chance to collaborate with the biggest shoe brand in the world, by far, in the history of footwear, and put my mark and design on 7 shoes.
It's amazing. And I'm just now noticing, I didn't notice this before, the yellow one has the same hand. And is that a basketball underneath it too? I don't see that on other ones.
So on the mac and cheese and the beef or broccoli, I'm vegan, but beef or broccoli is, it's just like a street term. But the hand is on top of a 12-inch vinyl record. For those who don't know, that basically you stream music that's digital, but when you listen to analog music, it's physical. And as a DJ, I only play 7 inches, which you see behind me, and 12 inches. And so the hand was on top of a record, and on the blue and red Air Force Ones, which were inspired by sports, not street culture, my hand is on top of a basketball. So it's kind of like this, like my hand is in 2 worlds, one in music and one on sports.
That's so cool. And both on sneakers. Really shows the connection to all 3. Also that it's both DJing and playing basketball. It's something you do with your hands. It's tactile. You have a physical connection to it. I think is really special too.
Thank you.
So what's happening in this image? What was this from? Can you tell us about this?
Sure. So when I collaborated with Puma for the Suede, it was the 50th anniversary of their model called the Suede. I was given a toolkit, and essentially here you see I've decided that the toe box, which is the front area, it would be off-white, and that the stripe would be white. Now, when Puma first learned of my wishes for that, they were like, we can't do that. And I was like, yes, you can. They were like, well, we've never done that. And I was like, actually, you did. In 1982, you released the Puma Sky 2, and it had an off-white toe box and a white. And I wasn't trying to show them up. I wasn't trying to be snotty, but it was just like, and even if you had never done it, then that's even more reason to do it now. Like, I like to be creative. And as I was encouraging the people in the audience today to be imaginative, I like to not follow what everybody's doing. And so sometimes that means taking a step back, right? Because, right now in the current space of sneaker design, you see a lot of like really complex and complicated color combinations. And I was like, hey, let's just keep it simple and go back and keep it to the basketball aesthetic. So yeah, you see the different colors. So anyway, so here's an example of sneakers that I designed where you get the sample from the factory. And in this case, here was the first sample, and where the gray wasn't quite the right gray that I wanted. It was more like a off-white. And so I went to the brand, and they came back to me with this shading of gray, which I was like, that's it. And that's what we went to market with. Sometimes you get a sample like this one or this one, for example, neither of which ever went to market. They didn't get released. Here's the Nike Air Force One that I designed, which originally was tonal in 2007. But then when I saw this, I was like, it would be better with a white stripe. So we switched to a white stripe. But then when you get the sample, you get to feel the fabrics. Like we did a waterproof canvas here on the upper, right, Charlotte? Right. This is very special to me because this I don't even have the other shoe. It's just one shoe. When you get the sample, you just get one foot. And so yeah, this shoe never came out either. This was in 2009. I did a low cut for Pro Keds. The model was Royal Flash, and this was inspired by the original colors of the Puerto Rican flag, dating back to the 1800s, El Grito de Lares, from September 23rd, 1868, where there was an insurrection against Spain. for the independence of Puerto Rico, and the colors were in unity with the Dominican flag and inspired by that. So I use that for this. So yeah.
I love those. It also totally changes it, the having the light blue instead of that sort of bright darker blue, totally different feel.
Yep.
And I love the historical nod too.
Yeah, sure. I mean, so that's when we talk about inspiration and taking chances. Like sometimes people see that and they're like, well, that's not the Puerto Rican flag's colors. Like, well, actually it is. So, you know.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So speaking of colors, how did you pick the colors for that sneaker that we just saw, that orange?
Oh, no, not at all. I mean, if you look at, and that's who I've been since, the late 70s, early 80s, just drawing sneakers because I love it. It just so happened that I grew into being a prominent force in that culture and getting the opportunity to get paid to do these things, but I would still be doing it anyway.
So speaking of being a prominent force, can you explain to us how special and amazing it is that Clark Kent posted about your sneakers?
Yeah, well, Clark Kent would be like the #1 sneakerhead in the world, essentially. And it'd be like, if LeBron James came to see you in high school and was like, hey, man, I really like that move. And I really like the sneakers you're wearing. I'm going to buy the sneakers that you're wearing. I'm going to practice the move that you just did. Like Clark Kent co-signing the shoes that I designed. You just can't. I mean, it's more meaningful to me than like even Nike telling me like, hey, they sold well and we love them. It's like, no, Clark liked them. It's like, wow. He's also a dear friend of mine. We're contemporaries and that we're the same age and kind of came through this whole world of sneaker culture, like in a very innocent phase. And he's got like 200,000 Instagram followers. So a lot of eyeballs saw this when he posted it. And it was great. It was great.
And then what happened in this photo?
Well, here, there are 2 ball players at PS 84 in Up West Side playing ball outdoors with the shoes that I designed, which, I mean, that's uncanny because basically in 2007, people weren't wearing Air Force Ones anymore to play. They were just wearing them as a sport. So, but it brings it back to the whole vision of mine to keep it simple, keep it inspired by basketball to the point where a ball player might be inspired to use them to actually for the function of their design. So that was another sort of like pat on the shoulder of like, yeah, I think I did it. I think I did these justice. Yeah.
Definitely. So now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to watch a video about the Puma sneakers that Bob designed. And I love watching this video because it really brings together the connection between basketball and music and sneakers.
I was born and raised in New York in an environment where you could not avoid or evade culture. It was just dripping, omnipresent, all around. You walk to the park, you hear music out the windows. You get to the park, you hear music at the court. Not just music, but particularly hip hop. That's the fabric that is New York. And that's the fabric of my DNA as well. Put me in the basketball court and I'm happy. If you got me playing on the basketball court, then it's like double the joy. That's my all time. Coming up in the city, the first status shoe for my crew was the Puma Suede. That was like the elite, damn, like not everybody could afford it, not everybody can even find it. So for me, it's like, it's love, man. It's complete love.
That's cool.
That's my favorite. I think that's my favorite part of the video at the end when you say it's love, it's all love. Because it is. And it's just hearing you speak about it is, we're just, again, so lucky that you're joining us and sharing with us how for you basketball and sneakers and music is all love. So now that I've had the pleasure of asking you so many questions that I've been curious about, we want to open it up. So if any of you have questions that you'd like to share with us to ask Bob, please put it in the chat. Jalissa will read it out loud. And so as we're waiting for some questions to come through, Jalissa, what have you noticed what have people been thinking and saying?
Well, a lot of people have chimed in with a lot of the colors they've done. But I have this one question that just came in, and it asks, how many sketches a day have you done, Bobbito?
Well, I don't sketch too often. I mean, anymore. I mean, I used to sketch regularly back in the 80s, and then I've sketched when I've been asked to design shoes for various brands. But I'm not an artist by day. I'm a ball player, so it's really functional and on demand sort of thing now. But I sketch sometimes with my son, and when he drew the Air Bunnies that I was telling you about, the rabbit inspired sneakers. Yeah, I was right beside him drawing a pair of sneakers myself.
Oh, that's beautiful. And like, just continue even work or doing your art like with your future generations. I love that. We have another question that just came in, and it asks, what do you see for the future of sneaker culture?
That's a great question. I don't know that in the 1970s and 80s that I could have predicted what how sneaker culture exists now. You know, I did write an article in 1990 though called "Confessions of a Sneaker Addict," which a few websites recently called me like the Nostradamus of sneaker culture, because I predicted everything that was going to happen in that decade of the 90s 10 years before it happened. And in fact, like if you read that article, it was published in The Source. It was the first article exploring sneaker culture in media history. And you know, it's very hard to discern now where sneaker culture is headed in the next 10, 20 years. I can't really say that. I didn't predict, I didn't anticipate the reseller market getting so huge. I'm not surprised by the frivolous, you know, industry stuff. I don't really care about it.
I like that. It's like walking art, you know, functionality, but still creativity there. I have another question. Someone asked if you've ever designed sneakers that was inspired by music as well.
Yeah, well, that was answered earlier when I did the 2007 Nike Air Force Ones, the 25th anniversary. I curated 7 collaborations, 5 of which were inspired by music, and 4 of which.
This is like in our earlier session, Bob also shared some sneakers, and I was saying how it made it feel like a real museum experience where we have actual artifacts.
So something that I didn't discuss earlier, you know, we spent so much focus on sneaker design, but there's also, when you collaborate with a brand, there's also point of purchase, POP, or, you know, packaging design that goes into it. And so here's the 50th anniversary Puma suede that I designed, right, with my name on the back. And on the inside, it says, "Where'd you get those?" which is the name of my book. I don't know if you can see it. However, because I designed it with the classic team colors, I wanted to bring it to music. And so I took the photo of a cassette of the radio show that I was a part of in the 1990s with Stretch, that a friend of mine had designed. And, you know, this is completely out of context. Like, it says Bob's Tasty Pancakes, you know, because I used to play music that was so absurd and so like unheard of by and, you know, and so you like I would world premiere a lot of music, and sometimes I would be like their tasty treats or their tasty pancakes just to be fun. And so he designed this cassette, and then I put the cassette on the box to sort of tie like the music and the and the basketball and the sneaker world together. and it worked really well. People collect that box just as much as they collect the sneaker.
Yeah,
It came out in 2018.
That's a
I love
beautiful
that.
box.
And it's like the sneaker is inside the cassette tape, and so the sneaker is inside the music, which is inside the basketball.
Very conceptual. Very
Totally.
conceptual.
We have time for one more question, and I see one in the chat that I'm interested to hear what you think about this. One person asked, would you say shoes represent your personality?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, sneakers are everything about an expression of your individuality. I mean, that's why the culture took off in New York the way it did. You know, growing up, I realized that I was a very small piece of this 8 million populated puzzle here in New York. And so I didn't really want to look like everybody else, you know? And so I yearned to, if I couldn't find a pair of sneakers that no one else had, then I bought a pair of sneakers that everybody else had, and then I customized them. And that was just like, you know, it's still to this day, like when I see someone choosing to wear a pair of sneakers that they have on, it should speak volumes about the person who you are, right? Volumes. You know, sometimes you see a person wearing really loud sneakers, you know, loud colors, you know. Sometimes you see, maybe they're very loud, but some days they want to just be chill and not noticed. And so they might wear a pair of sneakers that are tonal and gray because it's like they want to be like understated. You know, it's all about mood and then creativity, and you know, all these things come into play as you choose or create or customize the shoes that you design or, you know, decide to wear on your feet. It's a great question.
Absolutely. I love that question. And that was the perfect note to end on. Bob, we truly cannot thank you enough for joining us here today and for sharing just so many interesting things that you've done in your life with us, for advising us as we design our own sneakers. It's been such a pleasure. And for the participants, if you want to submit your artwork, the sneakers that you designed, to be considered for possible inclusion in a virtual MCNY Kids art gallery, you can find the student artwork permission slip on the webpage for this event, which Jalissa will also post in the chat. So if you go on that link that Jalissa just posted, you'll find the link to the student artwork permission slip. And if you want to do another STEAM education family program with MCNY, stay tuned. In May, we're doing a program all about jazz. So you can look on the MCNY Kids Create webpage for more information about that later in April. And Jalissa will post the link to that as well. I just see she just did. So you can check out that page sometime later in April. There'll be information about the next program. And thank you all again for joining us. Bob, we cannot thank you for your time and energy and creativity enough. And we hope everybody takes care and has a good day.
All right. Much love, everybody. Peace.